This is Algebra 2, spring test number 3. It's part 2, picking up on number 17. Rewriting this equation in vertex form. Y equals x squared plus 4x plus 0. You need to move the plus 0 over. Now, when you subtract 0 on one side, it doesn't change what it is. But just for the sake of keeping everything consistent, we'll subtract 0 on both sides and get y minus 0 equals x squared plus 4x plus c. Okay, so we need to find a new c value. Our new c value is going to be b's value divided by 2 again. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is going to be plus 4. But remember, if you add something to one side, you have to make sure to add it to the other side. So make sure to add 4 to the other side. So what that gives you is y plus 4 equals, and then we're going to take that perfect trinomial x squared plus 4x plus 4, and we're going to take the square root of x squared and get x, and the square root of 4 and get 2. In the middle of them, the sign in front of b tells you to put plus. The entire thing is squared. So x plus 2 squared, it's almost in vertex form. Move over the plus 4 part by subtracting 4. If you subtracted 4 on the left, subtract it on the right, and now you have y equals x plus 2 squared minus 4, vertex form. Remember, your vertex is the opposite of what you see in parentheses, so your x value would be negative 2, and it's exactly what you see outside of the parentheses. Your y value would be negative 4. Your vertex would be negative 2, negative 4. 18 says to divide using synthetic division. You're dividing this long polynomial here by the binomial x minus 3. Remember, you use the opposite of what it says here. It says negative 3 or minus 3. So we're going to divide by positive 3. Take all of your coefficients from each of your terms that's inside the parentheses in the polynomial. The first one is just make sure that you don't skip any of your degrees. Notice it's 4, then 3, then 2, then 1, then none. Good. So you don't have to represent any with a 0. If it did skip a degree, though, you'd have to represent one of the coefficients with 0. We don't have to do that. So your first one for x to the 4th power is 1. Then your second one for x to the 3rd power is 16. Then for x squared is negative 75. Then for x to the 1st power is 60. And then your constant term that has no x value is negative 18. From there, you bring your first number down. You don't manipulate it at all. You bring it down as 1. Multiply 1 times what's in your box, 3, and that's going to be your new value, 3. Combine 16 and 3, and you get 19. Multiplying 19 times 3, we know that if we multiply 20 times 3, we'll get 60. And then if we subtract 3 from that, we'll get 57. So 19 times 3 is going to be 57. Let me grab a different color. 57. When you combine 57 and negative 75, you have to subtract them since they're opposite signs. Borrow from that 7 and do 15 minus 7 to get 8. And then 6 minus 5 to get 1. The negative 75 was a bigger absolute value, so it's negative 18. Negative 18 times 3, again, you keep going back to what's in the box. Negative 18 times 3. We know that 20 times 3 will be 60 again, and then when you take 3 times 2 away, when you take 6 away, 60 minus 6 is going to be 54. A negative times a positive is a negative 54. Combine those two numbers, 60 and negative 54, and you get the number 6. And then when you multiply 6 and 3, going back to your number again, you get the number 18. It makes us a nice, neat remainder. Negative 18 and positive 18 gives you a remainder of 0. From these numbers, go back and create another polynomial using the polynomial you started with. You go 1 degree less than the degree you started with. So this coefficient is 1, so it'll be 1x to the 3rd power. This coefficient is positive 19, so plus 19. We go 1 degree less, x squared. Your next one is negative 18. You go down 1 more degree, x to the 1st power, and then positive 6, and there's no remainder. So when you divide that polynomial by x minus 3, you get x cubed plus 19x squared minus 18x plus 6. Number 19, simplify the difference. Much easier problem. You can only add and subtract things that have the exact same exponent raised to the exact same power. 8w squared minus 5w squared. 8 minus 5 is 3w squared. Negative 7w, again, minus 5w. Negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12w. And then negative 7 minus a negative. Remember, minus a negative means plus. So negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. 3w squared minus 12w minus 5. Simplify these products. All you have to do is distribute. 5 times 2 is 10. X to the third times x to the fourth. You add the exponents is x to the seventh. 5 times 8 is plus 40. You have x to the third and you have y to the third. You don't add those exponents. You simply write x to the third, y to the third. Do the same thing with number 21. Distribute. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 to the 7th times 8 to the 7th, you add them. 7 plus 7 is a to the 14th. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Again, different bases on these. One's a, one's b. All you can do is write a to the 7th, b to the 4th. 22, simplify the square root of 126 divided by 2. Divide, this is the easiest way to do this instead of separating it and rationalizing the denominator. Since we can simplify 126 divided by 2, you take the square root. When you divide 126 by 2, the square root is going to be 63. So from there, remember what your perfect squares are. 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, 5 times 5, 6 times 6, 7 times 7. Those numbers, 8 times 8, and then we got too big. One of those numbers, when you multiply by it, is a perfect square that goes into the number 63. 9 does. The square root of 9 times the square root of 7 simplifies. The square root of 9 is 3 times the square root of 7. Multiply and simplify if possible. There's different ways to do this one. You can multiply, probably the easiest way for some people is to just multiply them and get the square root of 40 and then do the same thing. 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, 5 times 5. Take one of those numbers and see what you can multiply by to get 40. We know that the number 4 multiplies by 10 to give you 40. The square root of 4 is 2 times the square root of 10. Another way you could have done that is you could have separated the square root of 20 into the square root of 2 times the square root of 10. Then you had the same square root of 2 multiplied by the square root of 2, and you could have just pulled it out saying 2 square root of 10. For number 24, you are multiplying 2 plus the square root of 6 squared. What that means is this: 2 plus the square root of 6 times itself. 2 plus the square root of 6, not times 2. FOIL is what you need to do when you're multiplying binomials, when you square in binomials in this case. First two terms are 2 times 2 is 4. Your outer two terms are 2 times the square root of 6. So plus 2 square root of 6 since it's positive. Your inner two terms, square root of 6 times 2, again, is plus 2 square root of 6. And then your last two terms, the square root of 6 times the square root of 6, it's plus the square root of 36. Or you could see at that point that that's the square root of 6 multiplying by itself and just make that what is the radicand, what's under the symbol, 6. But if you don't see that, just simplify it here. The square root of 36 is 6. So you have 4 plus 2 square root of 6 plus 2 square root of 6 plus 6. Simplify that by putting your like terms together. 4 and 6 gives you 10. 2 square root of 6 plus 2 square root of 6 is plus 4 times the square root of 6. And since we can't simplify the square root of 6 with any perfect squares, that's it. And then 25 is just simply going back to graphing y equals mx plus b. Your b tells you to begin at -1. So on your y-axis, this one, the one going up and down, you're going to begin at -1 at that point. Your m value is 6 over 5. Remember, m tells you where to move. It's positive 6 over positive 5. That means go up 6 and go to the right 5. So up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, we're just sketching this graph. Up 6 and to the right 5. Your second point will be right there. You have 2 points. Draw yourself hopefully better than a little straighter than that one. Draw yourself a straight line through your graph. Y equals 6 over 5, x minus 1. And that's it.